You've spelunked into the Matt Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, it is the University of Utah. Kyle Whittingham's crew is on deck, and I will give my prediction for the season. I'm not going to give anything away in this preview, in this introduction, so just going to have to listen in. I know I kind of ramble on a little bit at the beginning about my thoughts, but this time, you're just going to have to wait. It'll be just a couple of seconds, though. But anyway, and then to wrap up the episode, I'm going to give my final review of EA Sports College Football 26. Was there any improvement from last season? What they added, did it help? And another moaning and groaning about just the ultimate team garbage that they do. Anywho, thank you all so much for being here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, wherever it is, however you listen. Those updates do help a lot. And if you could do me a favor, share this show with just one person that you think would enjoy the program. That would be great. And I do also want to do a shout-out, a commenter shout-out. This one's for Angela Hammond because of how she let me know what the Utah fan base is actually thinking, what they're expecting, and guarded optimism is the term that she coined, and I think that's a smart way to go into it for the season for the University of Utah. I think Angela hit it on the head. That guarded optimism is the way to go. Utah does have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the country. They do have the best offensive line in the conference, no doubt, and so with the additions of the New Mexico offense basically coming over, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I did want to shout out Angela Hammond. Thank you so much. She's been listening from the start, back when these episodes could have ran 2 hours long. She was here. So thank you for the comment, Angela. And you know what? I don't do these often, if ever, but this show's dedicated to her. So also, if you're in the Lehi area, she's not paying for this, by the way. If you're in the Lehi area of Utah, go to Quench It. Get yourself a chungarito. That's my favorite drink. And maybe some pretzel bites. But yeah, if you need a drink down there in Lehi, you want to take a break from dropping off your kids at school, because I know school has started here in Utah for the most part, drive on down to Lehi, give yourself a nice little drive, and go say hi to Angela. All right, so let's dive into things. Last season was a dud. Everybody expected Utah to come into the Big 12 Conference and have it be business as usual after the run of dominance Utah had in the Pac-12 towards the demise of that version of the Pac-12 before conference realignment ate it up and spit out whatever it is we're looking at now. And it just didn't happen. Cam Rising, again, will he, won't he? The saga, is the sun rising? Is the moon rising? Is it? Did it ever exist in the sky? Who knows? We'll never know. But that saga is officially over. Cam Rising is off coaching, and we have all moved on to the new era of University of Utah offense, and it is a spread option-esque type attack that is being brought over by Jason Beck from the University of New Mexico, and before that Syracuse, before that Virginia, and before that BYU. Notable quarterbacks that Jason Beck has coached: Taysom Hill. Yes, that Taysom Hill. He also coached Brennan Armstrong over at Virginia. BYU fans, you'll remember him in that epic shootout that BYU and Virginia had in Provo when Bronco came back. So that he has a couple of really good quarterbacks under his purview that have exploded. And he also has Devon Dampier. Now, everyone is really high on this kid, and there's a lot to be high on. He's uber athletic, and that's putting it lightly. He can run the ball like a running back, and he can actually pass the ball. It's not like Nate Johnson was a couple of years ago. This kid can actually sling it. So why am I tepid on Devon Dampier? Why am I the one that's telling everyone to pump the brakes? It's quite simple. It's three things. First, turnovers. He is incredibly turnover prone. He had 12 interceptions to 12 touchdowns passing, and he averaged about a fumble per game. That's not great, and that angers head coach Kyle Whittingham more than pretty much anything else, are mistakes that can be avoided. So that's the first one. The second one, the competition he was up against was the Mountain West. The Mountain West is not the Big 12. I know that's not really groundbreaking journalism for you all. It's not out of the sky. Whoa, I can't believe he said that. It's just the truth of the matter. The Big 12 is not the Mountain West. And the third is, in important games, Devon Dampier turned the ball over. And I've got stats to back this up. This isn't just me staring at things. So in the final game of the season, Devon Dampier fumbled the ball. And that one turnover was the difference in the game between New Mexico making a bowl game and New Mexico staying home in the offseason. Or in the postseason, rather. So they lost to Hawaii in the final game of the season, 38-30, and that fumble was crucial in deciding who was winning this game. Another major game he was in against Utah State, he threw 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions against the Utah State defense that was one of the worst in the country. New Mexico did win this game, 50-45, but they had to come storming back in the fourth quarter to be able to do so. 3 interceptions against one of the worst defenses in the nation. In their major rivalry game, New Mexico versus New Mexico State, Devon Dampier did fumble the ball. He didn't throw an interception, but again, he was 13 of 28. That's Jake Retzlaff numbers. Now, BYU was able to survive Jake Retzlaff numbers, but I don't know if the University of Utah can, because they had that kind of quarterback situation last year. To give you another idea of another big game, Fresno State is usually at the top of the Mountain West. They played against New Mexico, 4th game of the season, so by then you're pretty much comfortable in the offense. You know what's going on. You know who your playmakers are. You know how your offensive line is, whether they're going to be able to block or not. And this one was at home. And New Mexico lost this one 38-21. And Devon Dampier threw 2 interceptions, and he just didn't look comfortable. He threw the ball 53 times in that game, too. So he had ample opportunity to do better. So that is what I'm looking at. And then I looked at other games. So games that you are supposed to win. Your team is better than the other team. You're supposed to win this game. So let's take a peek at the game against Wyoming that New Mexico lost 49-45 at home. Wyoming is a terrible team. Terrible. Devon Dampier, 16-31, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also fumbled the ball. 2 turnovers that were the difference in this game. That's not encouraging. And then in another one against Colorado State, that's pretty much equal footing, New Mexico and Colorado State. Colorado State is a little bit better than New Mexico, and that's historically true, and it was true last year as well. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and 1 fumble loss. So in big games, I don't know if it was a combination of trying to do too much and an offensive line that just didn't exist, or if it's a pattern. And I looked at the schedule, I looked at all of his games from last year, and to me, it was a pattern. It was not a one-off. It was not him trying to do too much, trying to put the offense on his back, which he basically did all last season anyway. I'm not going to say that he didn't. I'm not going to say that he had these awesome weapons that he could have turned to. He didn't. He was the offense. But when it mattered most, he started to turn the ball over. Fumbles, throwing interceptions. A couple of the interceptions were avoidable. They were Jake Retzlaff type interceptions. That's why I'm not as high on Devon Dampier as everybody else. Is he infinitely athletic? Yes, he is. To give you an idea, last season, he was responsible for almost over 4,000 total yards of offense. He also had 31 total touchdowns between passing and rushing. That's incredibly good. But again, the turnovers kill the game. They kill it. They kill momentum. They keep your defense on the field when it doesn't need to be there. It frustrates the team. It frustrates the coaching staff. And then people start to second-guess themselves. Again, nothing new under the sun with that commentary, but it's just another reminder of what can happen. And Utah fans know better than any. The past 2 years, the quarterback position is more important than any other position on the offense. You can't turn the ball over, and that is why I'm tepid on Devon Dampier and why I'm tepid on this offense as a whole. Now, Jason Beck did coach a very good New Mexico offense, but again, I do want to put an asterisk on it because mostly it was against Mountain West defenses a la Utah State. Out-of-conference game against New Mexico State. Wyoming. These aren't Big 12 defenses. And the Big 12 doesn't have necessarily great defenses outside of Utah and BYU. Like, those are the two big defenses in the conference. Everybody else is mediocre to bad when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. So, yes, Jason Beck did coach a very, I don't want to say prolific, but it was a very good offense. They were fourth in college football with 484 yards per game. They ranked first in the Mountain West. Again, grain of salt, there's one team in the Mountain West. That's Boise State. Sorry, Utah State fans, but it's true. It's Boise State. They ranked fifth in the FBS in rushing offense, so first in college football in rushing the ball, but that was all Devon Dampier. It really was not any running backs. So that's why I'm tepid on Devon Dampier. Does he have the potential to be in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the Big 12? Yes. Is he better than anything BYU has right now? Yes. But you got to pump the brakes here. It is exciting. It is new for the first time at the University of Utah in a long time. Andy Ludwig is not the offensive coordinator. Nobody from that coaching tree is there. It's brand new offense. It's spread. It's more fast than what Utah fans are going to be used to. There's not much huddling. You're going to get to the line. So there's not much the quarterback has to do because everybody looks to the sideline for the call and then they go. Right? So there's no audibles. There's no waiting on Cam Rising to scan the defense to snap the ball. It's going to be play call. There's going to be two to choose from. It gets into the quarterback. He looks at the offense really quick, makes a snap decision, ball snap, go. That's really the offense that Jason Beck is going to run. And it worked very well for people like Taysom Hill and Brendan Armstrong. Again, though, I cannot stress this enough. It was the Mountain West. It was not Big 12. It was not ACC. It's not even the best group of five conference. The best group of five conference is the American, and then I would put the Sun Belt above the Mountain West. So that's why I'm tepid on this offense. I'm very tepid on this offense. The defense is going to be outstanding again. It's going to be top 25 in the country. It's going to be top 3 in the Big 12, if not the best in the Big 12. I don't care who they lost. The University of Utah defense loses people year over year, and they still come back as one of the best in the country. And that's thanks to Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley. There's nothing I'm worried about on that defense. Nothing at all. Lander Barton, he's healthy. He's going to be wreaking havoc like nobody has seen since Devin Lloyd. The secondary is going to be great again. Smith Snowden, one of the better cornerbacks / safeties. I mean, he's just a defensive back, really, in the country, in my opinion. And so the defense, going to be fine. The special teams, usually a strength for Kyle Whittingham. They're usually in the top 25 in the country, right? This year, they got a freshman kicker. And a lot of people, when they do their predictions for these things, overlook that. It's a freshman kicker. That's a big deal. Final kick of the game. You're going to hand the keys over to an 18-year-old. That's... I wouldn't be able to watch if it were me. And Kyle Whittingham might be quick on the hook for that kicker position. And so that, again, doesn't really lend much confidence in whoever is going to start the season at the kicking position. Right now, leader in the clubhouse is a freshman. That's another thing that worries me on the offensive side of the ball for Utah. Now, Phil Steele, who has forgotten like 10 times the amount of college football that I'll ever know, has Utah as number 2 in the conference for the Big 12. Wow, that's a big jump for me. Yes, they have the best offensive line. Hands down. Will that improve Devon Dampier's play? Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. But the decision-making is still the decision-making. Quick snap decisions in a spread option offense is going to be do or die. And then on top of that, he's not the biggest guy. He's more compact. So he's 5'11", 205 is the official listing for Devon Dampier. That's bowling ball territory. But can he slide? Can he get out of bounds? And can he withstand the rough and tumble schedule of a Power 4 school? That's another thing I want to see. So again, I'm very tepid on this offense. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I'm not going to predict greatness for Devon Dampier, for Jason Beck. I'm not going to predict greatness for anything other than that offensive line. And that's one of the easiest calls I'll ever make in my life. Now, let's look at the schedule for Utah. They open the season at UCLA. Utah historically is not very good in Los Angeles until very recently. UCLA, USC, it didn't matter. It's 9 p.m. Mountain Time on Fox. Pac-12 after dark, they're going to say it 9 million times during the broadcast. Anything can happen after dark. Oh, it's Pac-12 after dark. Like they're clever or something. I'm worried about that because it is such a late kickoff. In the past, it hasn't really mattered, but this is the first game of the season. And having to wait until 9 p.m., 8 p.m. Pacific, you have to keep your emotions in check until that time. You're going to be pretty tired coming out the gates. UCLA has a lot to prove. So does Utah, but UCLA was run over in the Big Ten. UCLA also got Nico Iamaleava from the transfer portal, the kid that basically willed Tennessee to a double-digit win season in the SEC. It's going to be an interesting game. Utah probably will win that game, but it's going to be close. And then Utah has 2 gimme games, Cal Poly, FCS school at home, and then at Wyoming, just like BYU did last year. It's the same fodder. But then they open up the Big 12 against a darling for a lot of people. Texas Tech is being picked by a lot of people to be the best team in the Big 12. Not by Phil Steele, but by the other talking heads at The Athletic, at ESPN, Yahoo Sports. A lot of people are saying, look out for Texas Tech. And it is true. They went heavy in the transfer portal, and they spent a lot of NIL money to get the roster together that they have. Texas Tech will be pretty good. That'll be a great test to start the season. It is at Rice-Eccles, so edge Utah there, but a scary game. Then at West Virginia is transitioning back to Rich Rodriguez's offense that he ran back in the days of Pat White, if anybody remembers him. So they're in the middle of a transition. It's not going to be a good year for them. That should be a win for Utah, even though it is cross-country. And then Arizona State at home, huge one. So 2 humongous Big 12 games at home for Utah against Texas Tech, and then everybody's preseason pick, Arizona State, except for Phil Steele, who has Baylor winning the conference. That's an interesting pick. And then they travel to Provo in the game where anything can happen. It's going to be a toss-up. It'll be a very interesting game. Then at home against Colorado, at home against Cincinnati. Those both should be wins. Then at Baylor, revenge game for Utah for sure because of how they knocked out Cam Rising last year. And then Kansas State at home, and then at Kansas to wrap up the year. It is criminal that BYU and Utah are not playing on the final week of the season. It's criminal. It's criminal also that Kansas State and Kansas aren't playing on the last week of the season. It's so stupid. I don't understand what Brett Yormark and the Big 12 are doing when it comes to scheduling, but it's stupid. It is stupid. BYU and Utah should wrap up the year. Kansas State should wrap up the year. Iowa State should wrap up the year against Baylor. I mean, give me a break here. It is so simple. But anyway, that's the schedule for Utah. I like it because it bundles some home games together at the end of the year, towards the end of the year. And then the traveling is not too heavy. Except for their travel to West Virginia, they don't have to go very far. Overall on the record, I'm going to do the same thing with the University of Utah that I did with Utah State. I'm going to give you a ceiling, I'm going to give you a floor, and then I'm going to give you my prediction. The floor for the University of Utah is 3 wins. It is very conceivable to me that Utah does not win a single Big 12 game. It's very conceivable to me that could happen. Colorado versus Utah, the Battle of the Rockies, whatever you want to call it. Utah has dominated the air quotes rivalry. But this Colorado roster is incredibly mysterious. Nobody knows what's going to happen with this Colorado team. West Virginia, kind of the same thing. But like I said a little bit earlier, they are in the middle of a transition period into a brand new offense. There's a lot of transfers out from that school. But it is in Morgantown. Utah's never played there. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. Arizona State is going to have a target on their back. I don't know how they're going to play being the hunted. That's going to be interesting to see. But that's the floor for Utah. 3 wins is the floor. The ceiling is an undefeated season. 12-0. That is the ceiling for Utah. I can see that happening too, and it's very reasonable to see it. Devon Dampier lives up to all the hype. He is that guy. He cuts down his turnovers because he's not going to have to, run after a split second of touching the ball like he did at New Mexico. There's going to be more talent around him. But here's another question for you, Ute fans. Who's catching the ball from Devon Dampier? Yes, he did get his favorite target from New Mexico to go with him, Ryan Davis. But that's one guy. There's no tight ends, really, to speak of for Utah. There's not even really a running back room right now. And there wasn't a running back room behind Mekhi Bernard either. So who's going to be running the ball other than Devon Dampier? That offensive line can only do so much. Devon Dampier can only do so much. So when we look at that and we see all the question marks surrounding the offense, is Devon Dampier that guy? Who's going to catch the ball? Who's going to be running the ball so that Devon Dampier doesn't have to every down? The undefeated season becomes less and less realistic to me. I'm predicting a 7-win season for Utah, 7-5, and they will go to a bowl game. Not the way Kyle Whittingham is going to want to go out. Maybe he'll come back for one more year, but that's how I see this roster. That's how I see this playing out. I do not see a turnover-free season from Devon Dampier. I don't see it. I don't think it's possible. It'll take some time for him to adjust to Power 5 football. You're not going to be going up against Utah State and Colorado State every week anymore. So that'll take some time. And he's thrown straight into the fire with that UCLA game and then that Texas Tech game. Straight into it. No time to really adjust or get used to anything. He's just straight in. Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator. He coached at Virginia. He coached at BYU. He coached at Syracuse. And now he's at Utah. So he's coached in the ACC. He coached BYU when they were independent and had like 3 big games per year. He coached at Virginia where there's never any expectations of anything. And he coached at Syracuse where there's not much expectations of anything either when it comes to the football program. Now he's to Utah. He hasn't had expectations this high since he coached at BYU. That's been about 10 years. Does he have the chops to coach an offense? Can he make the right play call in crunch time against a Texas Tech defense that's swarming the ball? We'll have to see. Those are the questions I have for the University of Utah. Maybe I'm being overly harsh, but that's how I see it. 7 wins, 7-5. That's my prediction for the University of Utah. I'm sure you guys are going to let me know that I'm wrong, that I'm overly harsh on Devon Dampier, that the offense is actually much better than I think. I'm discounting the talent of the Mountain West too much. That's just how I see it, and that's what I'm thinking. 7-5. Floor 3 wins, ceiling undefeated. All right. Now, players to watch. The easy cop-out answer here is Devon Dampier, right? I talked about him this entire episode, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say Spencer Fano on the offensive line. He is an All-American candidate. He is preseason All-American from ESPN, preseason All-American from pretty much everyone. He's also a Remington Award and Outland Award finalist for Best Offensive Lineman in the country. He's on the watch list. He's going to be a finalist. He's the guy I want you to watch, and how he just shuts down the entire left side of that pass rush, and then how he pancakes anybody that dares line up against him in the run game. That's who I want you to watch. Left tackle, Utah, Spencer Fano. On the defense, Lander Barton is the easy answer here because he's just going to be all over the field. He's going to be involved in everything. My prediction here for you to watch, Smith Snowden. Next up in line for great Utah defensive backs. He had a solid season last year. He is primed for a breakout this year. So be on the lookout for Smith Snowden on that defense. So those are your 2 players to watch. The easy options, obviously quarterback and middle linebacker. Those are the easy options to watch, but I'm going to be watching Spencer Fano, and I'm also going to be watching Smith Snowden. All right, so that's my prediction for the University of Utah this season, everybody. Again, I'm sure you're going to have differing opinions on what I said. Please bring them on. Let me know. Facebook, Instagram, the Matt Cave Podcast. Happy to chat it out with you. And I'm never going to shout you down. I'm never going to call you any names. I just want to know your perspective. All right, let's move it right along to EA Sports College Football 26 and my review. Let me remind you of my scale. My scale for video game reviews is, because I haven't done this in a while, buy it no matter what. Buy it when it's on sale. When you get it as a gift, it'll be fun. I did tweak that one a little bit, and then stay away from it at all costs. That's basically my review scale. For this one, last year it was a buy it because, it was the first one back in 10 years. It was fun. It was fresh as far as the sports simulation goes from EA Sports, and they did a lot of things right. This game, buy it when it goes on sale. There's just not enough new to justify spending that much money on a brand new game for basically a roster update and 1 or 2 additions to the game. So that's really my review there. I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper here. So they are quick to update the rosters. When I was playing this game, they were very fast to move Retzlaff to Tulane from BYU. They were very quick on that. The avatars for the players, though, need some work. Like, for the players in-game, they are correct. Like, when you get onto the field, the models that they use for these guys are correct. It's those little, profile pictures that they have for the guys that are absolutely wrong, because they have McKay Hillstead as a very black man. McKay Hillstead is not a very black man. So there is some funny stuff going on there that they need to fix. I don't know if they will. I don't think that's very high on their list of things to do, but we'll see what happens as the season rolls along. Let's move over to Dynasty mode. That's the mode I play. That's the mode the majority of people who buy this game play and enjoy. You can use real coaches this year. Last year you couldn't because they ran out of time before the game came out, so they couldn't get those likenesses and they couldn't get the permissions in for these coaches. But there are a few coaches that are not in the game. Bill Belichick, obviously, he hasn't been in any game since 2002 or something. So he's never going to be in one of these games. He's the head coach of North Carolina. Coach Prime, also not in the game for Colorado. Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami, Florida, not in there. Frank Reich of Stanford, not in this game. Kirk Ferentz over at Iowa, not in the game. Trent Dilfer at UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham. The head coach of Jacksonville State is not in the game. And then Bronco Mendenhall. He is also not in the game, naturally. Because why would the 13th apostle, stoop to that level? But coaches you can play as, Kalani Sitake, Kyle Whittingham, both in there, ready to go. The coordinators are in the game as well. So you can be Morgan Scalley. You can be Jason Beck. So that's in there as well. You could be Aaron Roderick or Jay Hill of BYU. So that's pretty cool. I like that as well. So it's not just the head coaches that are in the game. There are a lot of coordinators in the game as well. You can also play as Kirby Smart at Georgia, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Steve Sarkisian at Texas, Ryan Day at Ohio State. So they have those big names in this game, which is a huge get. They didn't have those in the earlier iterations of NCAA football. They just weren't in there. They basically had the guys in there, just not with their names or likeness, but they had their records in there. Now they have the actual coaches, which is really cool. I like that a lot. So, in Dynasty mode, you can also recruit like you could before. What they added, though, were recruiting battles. So in the past, if you were the top guy or the top school recruiting a player throughout the season, eventually they'll sign with you. What can happen now is if you're number 2 and you basically have the exact same interest level in your school as, say, let's go Utah. So BYU and Utah are recruiting against each other. They have the same interest level from a player. It goes into a recruiting battle, which basically resets everything down to 0 for just those 2 schools for the remainder of the season until that player signs. So you can change up your recruiting strategy for that player when you get into that recruiting battle. So that is pretty interesting. I don't like it when it happens for a 3-star recruit because it's just a waste of time. But when it happens for that 5-star recruit from the state of Utah, you want to win the state of Utah in recruiting and keep your rival school down. That's fun. But when it comes to 3 stars, 2 stars, it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. If you're in a recruiting battle for that, just get out. Don't worry about it. Just say, all right, you guys win. Off season, the training is the same. It's random. Basically based on traits, you can have a development trait of elite, normal, slow, superstar, something like that. I think it's Heisman level. But those are the training, I guess, avatars you can have for these guys when you recruit them. and then that determines how high their overall and different stats go every offseason when you go into the next year. So that hasn't changed at all. You can encourage transfers instead of just deleting players from the file. So you can, if you have guys low on the depth chart, you can tell them to transfer. They'll be removed from your roster, but they will be available in the transfer portal when the next season starts. Coach progression still takes too long. Way too long unless you have it on the fastest. It takes way too long. Each level grants you 10 coach points, which you can then allocate to improve different areas of your coach. If you want to be a recruiting dynamo, you can put them in there, but each level takes 10 coins. Or if you get into the advanced part of the tree, it's 12 coins per. It takes too long unless you have it on fastest. I had it on fast, and it was still taking way too long. Now, you can also do custom conferences in between seasons, which is cool if you want to set up the new Pac-12, or as I'm going to jokingly refer to it when Utah State joins, the state conference, because it's Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, San Diego State, State Tech. Like they're all states except for Gonzaga, and so Gonzaga doesn't play football. That's the conference that Utah State's joining. So you can do custom conferences as well. Or if you want to do something funny, you can do like the all-religious conference where you have schools like Baylor, TCU, BYU, Notre Dame. And then you can have like the Sinners School where schools that have a history of breaking the rules like Michigan, Miami, you can have them in a conference. So like Saints versus Sinners conferences. You could do that as well. The other mode I want to talk about is Road to Glory. I know I'm running a little bit long, but Road to Glory is so much better this year than it was last year. You don't have to play every down of every game in high school. They are catered events for you to play through to show off different kinds of skills to the universities that you have interest in. You can choose up to 10 schools that you're interested in playing for, and then each school will want you to do different things to showcase your ability, how well you perform in ticking off those boxes. Increases or decreases your star level. So you can go from a 5-star recruit down to a 4-star recruit during the season, but you can also get back up to that 5-star plateau based off of how you're doing. And then on top of that, you can change these schools. So you're not locked into those 10 schools. You can change. Like you can sub out, I don't want to go to Cal, maybe, but let's swap in Clemson, something like that. And then those schools will tell you what they want from you as well. They can also revoke scholarships from you based off of your performance. So one week you earned a scholarship to Texas, but then the next week you didn't hit all of the goals, and so your level drops and Texas revokes that scholarship. That's cool too. That's really cool. And so on top of that, when you cut down to your last 3 schools, for me, it was BYU, Utah, and LSU. LSU was never really in the running. It was BYU and Utah. There's a cute little cutscene that you can do, or not even can do, that you do, where you do that hat thing that these kids have done for years on signing day, where 3 hats on the table, you can hover your hand over them, and then you can fake put on a hat. So for me, because I'm a troll, I picked up Utah's hat and did that, maybe this one, then I put it down and put on the BYU hat. That's something funny you can do. It doesn't really affect anything. But after you select your school, after you commit, you can select a mental ability, and then you'll be off to college. So the mental ability basically means what sort of archetype player you want to be, and that will affect your development as you play the game. During each week, you have action tokens to spend to do different activities. And so in this one, it really wants you to be a balanced student athlete, and so you need to study for class, you need to have a certain GPA, or you'll just get kicked out of the school. You also need to be able to do off the field stuff like leadership things. You can also work out instead of doing those things, which will then lower coach trust in you because you're not going to class and you're not doing leadership type activities. And then if you have a low enough coaching trust, they will bench you. And if it goes down even further, you'll get cut from the team. So that's very cool. It's a very in-depth thing. You need to be on top of it. It's a time sink for sure. This is not a quick mode for you to do, but it's a very RPG type thing for a sports game that I'm rather impressed with. But there's not enough in this game for me to justify, say, buy it when it's just not that much different from last year's version. If you want to play as a coach, there's a specific coach out there you want to play as. You want to play as Coach Witt. You want to play as Kalani Sitake. maybe there's a different coach you want to play as over on the West Coast, like Dan Lanning at Oregon, then buy this game, because you can't do that in the first iteration of EA Sports College Football. All right, so that's the episode this week, everybody. Ran a little bit long. I appreciate you hanging out. And as always, I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.